Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric, and happy holidays. We are now a week into December, and as you can see from behind me, I am a little bit more decorated and prepared than I was last week. I've been doing a lot of cooking, a lot of cleaning, and a little bit of decorating. So this week I have, again, an English paper piecing block to share with you, and a craft project to share with you. But first, I thought I would mention about the tree behind me. So when my kids were little, we had just one very large tree. It sits right here, and it will go up later this weekend. When my kids were really little, my daughter's still in diapers. My husband was with the military and he was deployed, and it was our first Christmas in our house in Colorado. And I wanted a Christmas tree, and I wanted to have it up at the beginning of December, as we had always done, what I've always done. But we didn't have a big Christmas tree. We just had one of these small tabletop 5-footer, 3-footer type trees that we put on a hope chest of ours. And that Christmas season, my husband, he was away for the first couple weeks of December, and I didn't want to delay and not have the tree up. So with toddlers in tow, I headed off to one of the stores that carry the manufactured trees, and I looked around with the kids, and I looked and I found the tree that I knew I wanted for our home. An 8-foot tree, full and wide, and lots of area to put ornaments that we would add every year to our collection. Because I'd already started the tradition of collecting ornaments every year, I knew we needed a big tree that would hold, my children's youth, if nothing else, of Christmas ornaments. What I hadn't really considered is how I was going to get that giant box out to the truck. I was fortunate enough to find a store attendant who came and helped me. And then I managed to get the box into the house, and then I waited until the kids went to sleep that evening, and I started putting up the tree. And I started putting up the box after box after box of Christmas lights. It was a late night for me, and I was still working at the time, and so a late night and an early morning, but I had the Christmas tree up and the lights on it, and I had it up in time that when my husband came home, we'd be able to start putting the ornaments on the tree. And we still have that tree. It is managed. It has survived 24 years. This will be its 24th Christmas. My husband has had to do a little repair to, reinforce some of the branches, but we've made it work, and we look forward to having the tree up. But now that it's just my husband and I, and it's 24 years later, I don't look forward to putting up the Christmas tree. I much prefer these small trees that I have created that contain more of the breakables, the handmade, the lace, the glass. Our big tree does still have some handmade ornaments on it as well, but these little trees have been wonderful these last couple years, because it means that I have trees that I can put up on my own and decorate. I have boxes designated. Last year, I made sure to put the ornaments away designated for, this is the red and white tree. The other one is the Delft-inspired blue and white tree. And I dedicated bins for those ornaments so that I can put up those trees as I have energy to do it. And then the big one, my husband and I will tackle together. We now understand why our parents and grandparents before us downsized for the holidays. But it is such a wonderful time of the year for me. I love the colors. I love the crafts. I love everything about the season, the making and the giving, the baking. I did a bunch of cookies this week for 2 events that I did not go to. Some for a friend and some for my husband to take to work. And of course, some to eat ourselves. And I was so pleased because I had the energy to do it. I suffered a little bit afterwards, but it's wonderful. I have to say, now that I'm, found a good couple medications that help with the pain and help with my thyroid, it is wonderful to actually now be able to pace myself and do these things and decorate. So I wanted to share that little bit about my decorations and my Christmas trees. It has been a week that has reminded me how grateful I am that I have the mobility that I have the energy I have, because even just a few years ago, the mobility and the energy didn't necessarily combine well to have these decorations, to do these things. I feel extraordinarily blessed to be able to do what I do. On that, if you watched my Instagram post a few days ago, you'll notice my iron. Because I have been a quilter long before doing any of the other stuff, I am picky about the iron that I use in my sewing room. And over the last couple years, because of mobility and pain issues, and what really has all the hallmarks of possibly being arthritis setting in, I have an iron that I use for the large stuff. I have an iron that I use that is much lighter, that it never has water put in it, that I use for other stuff. And then I have a little tiny travel iron, travel iron, craft iron, that I use for when I'm doing delicate little piecing and stuff. And that's the solution I came up with to try to have it so that I could have the iron that I needed without putting the strain on my body. So my larger iron that has lots of wonderful steam, lots of bursts of steam, it fell. And I noticed right off the bat that the top of the iron had broken off a piece of the plastic, but I was still using it. It was like, all right, I can use a funky looking iron. But the steam button, the other day when I was using the steam button broke. It went in and it stayed there. It did not want to come out. So it was permanently on steam, and that won't work for a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. And I was frustrated. I had been watching another quilter. I've shared his vlog. It's called Dave's Craft Room, and I've been watching him and kind of getting a little bit of iron envy because he had a cordless iron. And so I'd already been looking at what the cordless irons were and everything. But I had put it in the save for later. I wasn't going to do it. I didn't really want to buy an iron for Christmas. This Christmas, because we're doing the construction outside, there's a lot of other things that our funds have been earmarked for. But I kind of needed a good steam iron. And I have an old one that I could have pulled down, really tried to clean off the sole pit. It's more for crafts anymore. But I thought, all right, I went and I looked again, and I'm glad that I saved for later that I had put it off, because in doing the searching and reading reviews, I actually found an iron in which a quilter with aches and pains did the review and talked about something I'd never considered. Because I'm very particular about the sole plates. I want them to be a certain kind. I don't like big open steam holes because those grooves catch quilting, the back of, well, I'll show on this piece here. They catch all the little points and stuff like that when you're doing a lot of your piecing. And while I have a tiny little iron that I use for pressing my pieces flat, I do like to have the big iron. I do still keep my multiple uses in mind when I'm purchasing. But one of the things she mentioned that I'd never considered, she said, because I'd already noticed that the iron that I was looking at was approximately, it looked like the same weight as the one I was currently using. And as it turns out, when I bought it, I did weigh it, and it is the same weight. But she mentioned something that I never considered. The weight of the cord when it's being drug around. So it's not just the annoyance of the cord always being in the wrong place when you're trying to press a large piece of fabric, a quilt top, but the weight of it actually puts extra weight and strain on your use. And I thought, wow, okay, here's somebody who understands my situation, who understands how limited my ability to use the arms in certain ways and how I can get stress, overuse injuries very quickly and strains very quickly. And here's somebody who understands that it's not that I'm trying to avoid the aches and pains of work. I'm trying to limit the wear and tear that my body has flare-ups over. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take the plunge. And I talked to my husband, and it was a little, had a little bit of trepidation. They come in various different price ranges by every different company. And that's why I'm not showing the one that I've bought, because I think everywhere we live, all the different places around the world, you're going to have different options, and they'll come in different price ranges. And I don't go for the top end, and I don't go for the bottom end unless it's like a little craft iron. And so I found one for about $100 US. And I have not paid that much for an iron ever before. It's a little more than I would rather pay for an iron. But when it came, I was in love. I was absolutely in love. It pressed up my EPP block in a heartbeat. It put out the steam. But because of it, it's one that is, think of a kind of not a teardrop, but that type of shape that's pointed and then so a tiered shape, just not with the rounded. So both sides are pointed, which does take a little getting used to, because I'm so used to standing up the iron, not putting it, over in its holder. And I've tried to set it down a couple times. It won't sit on its hind because there is no hind. It's both front and back have the same shape. But I was in love. I could immediately feel the difference of not dragging the weight of the cord. So I wanted to share that with you as well today, because that might be something that might benefit a number of you out there. It's worth thinking about what we use our irons for. The small little craft iron that I have, there's a number of them out there. There's some that have a little knob on top that you hold. There's some that are more of a grooved, I like one it's shaped actually not much different than my ergonomic mouse for my computer. But I do need a good, heavy, lots of steam burst iron for when I'm pressing, because I pre-wash all my fabrics. So when I'm pressing that, when I'm pressing out a quilt top, I need a real iron as well as a smaller or lighter weight for the piecing that I do. So I wanted to share that. I wanted to just mention that if it is something that is on your wish list, if it's something you're considering, if it's something you have issues with, definitely look into a cordless iron. They come, as I said, in different price ranges. In my case, I was really focused on having something that that had a sole plate with small holes, that had an ability to reheat, turn off, and it does. It heats up really quickly. It shuts off, after so much time, but then it stays warm because it's in its little holder. There are a number of them that I saw that actually stood upright entirely and sat on a charger, and I decided not to have one of those. I like the fact that it is the same shape. It's it's symmetrical, so it points and goes around and then repeats that point on the bottom. I'm actually enjoying that. For a number of the things that I do not want a big bulky square shape at the back. So look and see if it's something that you're thinking about, if you need to replace one. It's nice to have the ones for crafts, because then I can try to avoid getting heat and bond or steam a seam and all of those kind of things on this one. But yeah, I'm very pleased. It is a wonderful Christmas present to me. I told my husband we'll count it as a Christmas present from him. I have another appliance coming that's a kitchen appliance, and we laugh because these are the things that wives never want to get from their husbands for Christmas. And my husband and I have always laughed because that's exactly, this is exactly the kind of thing I want my husband to give me for Christmas. I have never been a big go out and buy, or have my husband buy me expensive jewelry. I like some character pieces. He has found me some unique pieces over the years, but it's always more of a crafter, a small business, not anything big and blingy. So, all right, well, we should probably get onto the craft now. This week, what I wanted to share is my little gingerbread dudes. Now, I've shared them in the past, and they inspired me. And in fact, I'm late in recording this because they inspired me to create something different. If you remember a week or 2 ago, 2 weeks ago, I shared about towel toppers, and I dug out, this is the one. This one I think was actually made by my great aunt. My grandmother also made some like this. And again, as I said, I haven't found hers, but I have this one here that my great aunt made. And it's made to look like a little dress, and it hangs, and then it has its skirt, okay? And I thought about that, and then I thought about, see, the gingerbread, this little guy, he was made years ago, long before I was doing embroidery machines. He was made years ago, and his fabric is a little child's vest. It's wool, and it's a little child's vest that there were stains and damage to the front, that it was in a bag of donation stuff that somebody gave me, and I went through and made sure that there wasn't anything that couldn't be donated, and this had damage. So I took it out, I cut apart the vest and kept the usable fabric, and I made a bunch of these little gingerbread guys. And it's just a little, it's a simple little thing. I will try, I'm going to actually try to sit down and get the pattern for him and the pattern for this next item inspired by the towel and the gingerbread. And have a template for you, okay, and some instructions. But he inspired me because, so the idea about the gingerbread, you could have gingerbread cookies. You could make lots of things out of craft felt. You could have so much fun getting your cookie cutters and tracing the shapes and making gingerbread themed ornaments. Very traditional, very old school, lots of fun with the kids. Something like this just takes a little bit of stitching and stuffing, but he made me think about something just a little bit out of the box. And it took me a while, to work through everything. But as ornaments. So it's done in a piece like this. I'm using my little trick of folding. So it's a mini version of my towel toppers that I showed 2 weeks ago. And the fabric, this is leftover pieces from when I was constructing these shirts that I didn't want to throw away. And it frays beautifully. It just has a little tiny raw edge folded over seam. I'm thinking of putting a snap on the back, but I'm also thinking of putting a magnet so that this could be on, put on the fridge or on the stove, little Christmas ornament towels. Now, the fun thing about this, if you're looking at doing something a little bit, so I'll show you this one. So this is my first success. Now, I have strings everywhere. If you have permanent fabric markers, you could write a little message on your toweling. You could also hang a tag, but this would be such a cute little gift, maybe to give when you're giving a jar of hot cocoa, or tag, when you're giving a cookies. When you're giving the gift of cookies, maybe to have a little towel to ornament to go on it. So if I put a snap on it, I could just put some cording here and hang it on the tree like that. I have a photo, because I was thinking I do want to try to at least give the templates for it. But the stages, the first stage of making this little guy, okay, and I'm doing this in the embroidery machine, but I'll give you the template to be able to do it by hand. This is stabilizer. You could use paper. Printer paper would be fine for this. You could draw or print out the shape on that paper and then sew on the line. This is a cutaway stabilizer, so I can't just tear it out. If it was paper, I'd just tear that out because the stitching will perforate it. So if you notice in the first step, I have attached the front. Let me show you one of the fronts. This guy, okay. I've attached the front piece, all right? And I've stitched it on that paper. I've also put down batting. So what's really great to do is if you have drawn the line on the paper and you put that on top of some batting and then stitch along that line, okay, so you have your batting, then using that same stitching line, you now put your fabric down, the top piece. So your top and batting goes. I like to trim, if you notice here, I like to trim away all the extra batting. Makes it easier to turn it right side out. So all this is my paper, batting, and my top. Then, when all of that has been stitched onto the paper with right sides together, okay, I put down, and let's see, I put down, and I showed that in a little video clip, how I, here we go. My pieces, see remember how they're overlapped? Like with the mug rugs, if you look for my mug rugs, they're overlapped. And so what I have here is a little opening, okay? My raw edged opening is on the outside. The one that's folded, put that here, I'll pull this out of the way, here we go. See the little one that's folded? That's the facing down. So that is right sides together, that piece facing down, so the raw edges are on top. I know I'm doing a terrible job of explaining it. But I always put a piece of masking tape across the top to hold everything in place, and then I go following the stitching line. I only stitch up and around. That's important. Do not, at this point, stitch on the bottom. I stitched all the way around, when doing the top and batting. But I only am going to stitch, okay, around, up and around to attach the backing. And that is important because if we look at the next one, you will see how I've been able to feed in my fabric. See here, the raw edge piece that overlaps. And here is the backing piece that has the fold. Now, this shows you before I've done any trimming, I've just stitched the line. Now, it's always good to snip those corners, okay? And then, usually using a dowel, a chopstick, some sort of turner. Here, let me do this in front of the camera, not in my lap. Okay. There's, see, you can see now the fold. That one really shows you the fold. So once the other one's been turned, you can now see that the fold was there, and you turn and you shove. And all that's left is to close up that little opening. And you have another little towel. So I was inspired by the gingerbread because I thought, what better to go with a bunch of gingerbread cookie ornaments than a bunch of towels, little mini towels. So you could have a lot of fun because you could draw on these. You could use little tiny remnants of fun fabrics. For instance, this one, when it's done, it's gingerbread fabric. I'll show pictures when it's all done. This one I have some embroidery on, but you could do a little fussy cut. You could draw on it. You could put buttons. That would be really cute as well. Tiny buttons. So I just thought it was a lot of fun. I think that I'll be putting magnets on the back and having them hang on the fridge and stuff like that. It's a cute idea. So now, inspired by this little gingerbread guy that I made years and years and years ago, and I have actually put it on the embroidery machine to do it. But this guy was so easy years ago. I made up, 8 to 10 of them. And in fact, the angel on my tree behind me, which I'll show a picture, is actually a larger version of this gingerbread where I've just put hair on her and a dress. And it's the same basic, idea. So I wanted to share that. I also, really quickly, before I share my EPP, my husband and I had a chance to go out to some holiday markets and different things last week. In fact, I was going to wear these today, and I forgot to. So we found there's a company called Twin Mountain Handcrafts. These are the earrings that I was supposed to wear today. I'll try to wear them next week. I put them in my box and I forgot all about it. Twin Mountain Handcrafts. And they said they do have a distributor in the UK. They have a website. But the reason that I am sharing is not for the earrings. It is for the crazy, crazy fun. Hold on, let me flip them over. Stitch markers that I have, that I purchased. So these are, trying to get them so they have a little bit of the silver on the back. So I'm trying to get it so we see all the fronts. And every time I lift it up, they flip over. There we go. So these are stitch markers. Little bees. Okay. That's the rose colored. And these are the gold colored. Oh, I'm not going to worry about flipping them. You can see the silver on some of them. So it has that shine. But this is laser cut acrylic. Oh my goodness. So excited when we saw these. And they have some laser cut and etched the wood ones, I have to flip all of these over because otherwise you will not be able to see the tiny little kittens. So Twin Mountain Handcrafts, I had to do a shout out to them. It was such an exciting thing to see because as someone who has dabbled a little bit with laser cutting, I was immensely impressed with the tiny little scale of these. The designs that they picked. I mean, there is a difference between a hobbyist and somebody who has a really good artistic and business eye. So if you're looking for some stitch markers and earrings and things of that nature for a gift for this holiday or for throughout the season, I highly, highly recommend, and no, I'm not sponsored by this, Twin Mountain Handcrafts. I will put a link to their website in the description below. That is my tip. As I said, they said they do have a distributor in the UK. Of course, the shipping is sometimes problematic for us. Now, you know, it's not exactly the cheapest thing, but if you have a need for some stitch markers or something like that, or just want to see some just amazing fun, go and check out their website. It was my utter joy of that day. Well, there were two things that stood out that day. Those stitch markers and an apple cake that, oh, I'm so glad we bought a second one and threw it in the freezer because we just bought a little tiny one for snack for that day, and my husband and I consumed it better than donuts, better than cupcakes. It was an old-fashioned apple cake at a local market stall. It was so yummy. There is such joy in having sticky, yummy, spicy, Christmassy flavored food. You just occasionally have to indulge. Speaking of which, I should probably share a picture of the photo of my cookies. I managed to make the butterscotch snickerdoodles, which you can find. I think that recipe may be, and my chocolate chip. I can't remember which one I shared last year recipe wise. If I have not shared my butterscotch snickerdoodle recipe, I will see about doing that this holiday season. And so follow my blog, follow my vlog, and you won't miss any of it. But yeah, I managed to do those. The chocolate chips are the ones that always remind me of my grandma and the cookies she made. But the butterscotch snickerdoodles are my husband's favorite. He loves butterscotch, and it's a great way to use the butterscotch chips that you can buy because they're a little bit overwhelming on their own. But when you add them to a sugar cookie base, roll the sugar cookie dough into cinnamon sugar, something about the cinnamon and sugar combination with the butterscotch just makes a fabulous cookie. And based on the fact that he took them to work and there were none left, I would say other people enjoyed them as well. Okay, so let's wrap this one up with my English paper piecing block. It is the Merry Star, and it's another one that, you know, depending on the color combinations you use, it can look very different. It would look so much like a snowflake if I did this in blue and white. So consider this as a star/snowflake, as we are definitely celebrating the Christmas season, entering into the winter months. I've been catching up on my my Vlogmas vlogs that I follow, and I saw that in areas of Scotland you had some serious snow. I was watching Giddy Knits, and oh my goodness, to see them out at the beach, little flakes of snow, worried that they weren't going to be able to show up on the camera, only to, by the end of their visit, have oodles of snow and have them look like they were caught in a blizzard. One of the things I do not miss about Colorado, honestly, I love snow. Don't get me wrong. I love snow. I'd love to have snow. But going from, I don't know if this snowflake will show up on camera, to I'm now in a blizzard. I don't miss that. I don't miss the mess. I have to say, I don't miss the snow staying around 3 months once you did get snow. Yes, as we get older, the things of our youth fade, and we're much more into small trees and a little more ease. More time to rest and relax and unwind, I guess, is the idea. So I wanted to, let's see, just as a reminder, I have my little tiny ornaments. That's hard to show together. Have to get a little picture, of course, for my thumbnails. Here, let's hold him up like this. There we go. We have a picture. Yes, I have to hold these up because I always forget at the end to take a picture. and then I'm editing my video and I'm like, oh, oops, now where do I get one where I'm not talking? Because it's very difficult to take a snapshot of my video out of my video if I am talking. It does not look as nice as if I'm actually posing and smiling. Oh my goodness. Well, Merry Christmas, a little on the early side. We will see you next week for some more Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. Remember to check out my blog. The patterns will be there. I will do my best to get the templates for this little guy and this little towel, because whether it is done by machine or done by hand, I think of a lot of people who might find a little magnet or a little ornament like this to be the perfect accompaniment in the gift they received from someone. Oftentimes, when we give a gift of food, like the hot cocoa that I gave out this week, or a plate of cookies, it's nice to have that little touch that lasts past the consumption of the food. And what is more cute than a little tiny towel to decorate the kitchen with a magnet? So I hope you have another good week of Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric, and I hope to see you next week. Until then, blessings.